Hey, it's your host, Brian Donato here from Purposeful Parenting Period, where I bring on intentional mothers and fathers who share their purposeful parenting perspectives. So today I've got an amazing father named Dustin Dean. He lives in Rochester, Minnesota. He has several jobs, including being a nursing professor and mental health psychiatric nurse. And he's a very intentional dad. Just from conversing with him, I can just tell that just from talking with him. So I definitely look forward to this conversation with him. And he also has a YouTube channel that I want to mention that I'm sure we're going to get into too. That's called Learning to Live. So I know that this is going to be a powerful podcast. So I definitely appreciate having you on the podcast, Dustin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. I'm really excited to be here today. I really love what you're doing here at Purposeful Parenting, and it's just I'm excited about it. It's actually my life, taking care of my main job as a psychiatric nurse is taking care of child and adolescent patients, and then I'm a father myself, and it's such a good thing. There's such a need for what you're doing, so I'm honored and thrilled to be on here. So thanks, Brian. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's so important just to raise children in an intentional way, just so we're not blind to it, pretty much. So just to get
And we're
started.
forming the world. At the end of the day, we're forming the next generation.
Yeah, right. So just quickly, just tell me about yourself as a person and as a parent.
Yeah. So I mean, wow, that's there's a lot there, but just as a person, I'm just somebody who really I struggled early on. I had a rough upbringing. Lots of abuse, lots of just a tough upbringing. But I realized throughout that life can be hard and horrible, or it can be rewarding and just amazing. And a lot of it has to do with the way we perceive things. And that's one thing that I think, as both a parent and as a person, if you want to go there, is really developing that perception of things. Because we so many times, if we filter our life through our pain in our past instead of through our power and our potential, if we filter it through our pain in our past, we're gonna struggle. And tough things happen. We might need to reach out to a therapist. We might need help. That's okay. But continually processing things through persecution instead of potential really can leave us stuck. And I think that's one thing that, to explain myself in a nutshell, I love life. I love looking at the next challenge and looking at where I can go and where I can, hopefully inspire others to see that this gig can be great, and especially, and from a parenting perspective too, just letting parents know that, I think that's one thing we get kind of confused with our children, is we think that they're a part of us, instead of treating them as an individual person.
For sure.
We have, ancient, there's ancient ideas that parents are the guardians, kind of, and I think that's one thing that I think it kind of works good when we realize we're the guardian of like a precious treasure, and like letting that treasure find his way or her way, and just really seeing. That's what I loved about when you talked about with Ace, the positiveness, talking in the mirror when he gets old enough to see those great things about himself and his potential. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so much there that are definitely important, I think, for parents to hear. Like the one thing you said was pretty much like we shouldn't feel like the past and our past pain should kind of be, some that we're still dealing with in a negative way. So it's kind of like turning past pain into your power, which is what you were talking about. Yeah, and
exactly.
then
which is the topic I picked. But anyway, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
And then I think like the thing you said about we don't pretty much like own our children, they're their own people. I think that's so important too. And this is like the second episode of my podcast, but one major theme is just that, like, we at least for myself, like, I want to empower my child to be his authentic self. So being a purposeful parent is not like doing things for a child, but it's just having purpose in the decisions that you make, which is a really big part of parenting. And yeah, like power, I know that ties in with our main topic today. So I know you're really passionate about just instilling the resilience in your kids and that sort of thing. So I know that that's the one character trait that you want to focus on. So like, why would you say that resilience is so important to instill in your kids?
So, I mean, the Webster definition, if you will, is the capacity to recover quickly from struggles. That's what resilience is in the book. But to me, it's so much more, and I really think it's the key to life. To be honest, because in life there's going to be lots of challenges. There's going to be lots of struggles. Things don't go the way we plan, and being able to realize that when that challenge happens, it it might set us back for a second, but when we get through it, when we go through the challenge, we come out stronger. And I think so many times, well-meaning parents and maybe education specialists and all sorts of things have tried to protect generations from the struggle, and they haven't got to see that that's where character's built, that's where
For
strength's
sure,
built,
yeah.
that's where they're going to thrive. And resilience, that resilience, the I think the best picture for me, I'm obviously a big Marvel fan, and I really like Black Panther. And if anybody's ever watched the movie Black Panther, it's got a really good visual of, I think, what resilience is. He gets this suit that anytime he gets hit, kicked, something blows up, it retains the energy. And then when he needs it, he uses that energy to his advantage to do good. And I think that's what we need to instill in our children when there's struggles, when they have to overcome maybe bullying or a bad grade or getting cut from a team that they loved, or teasing, when they come through that. And when we support them and let them know, hey, this happens, let's move forward. This has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the others. Other than this can build character in you. It's
Yeah,
similar to that outfit. It gives them strength. It makes them stronger. It's just like anything, playing a sport. I think you play basketball, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, me too. And that first 3 days of practice, man, we're dying, right?
for sure, yeah.
The legs hurt. I just remember like just sitting through class, just going, I do not want that clock to hit, 3 o'clock. So I have to go to practice again because I'm in so much pain. 2 weeks later, we don't even think about it. And the
Yeah,
practice is just as hard. We're running just as hard, but that's what resilience is building that strength through that struggle. And that's
awesome,
what
awesome.
if we can get our kids to see that early on, man, they will rock this world.
Yeah, I think that there's so many great points that you made. I mean, especially, the world right now, I think maybe the last like 20, 30 years has kind of just been like pretty stable. But of course, in the past year, there's just been a lot of different things going on. And, instilling resilience in our children, that's so important right now. And like one thing that you mentioned too, you were kind of saying it's kind of like some parents might have a misconception about it, so they don't put their children in a challenging situation because they feel like that's going to hurt them, maybe long term, or maybe they won't be able to handle it. But as you were saying, it's like eventually you're going to have to experience the adversity, so you might as well be exposed to it early, so then you would become stronger through it, right?
And that's where I think, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brian. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, yeah, and I think that's just so important because it's pretty much like focus on what you can control, not what you can't. You know?
Exactly. There are so many things in life we can't control, and I have this conversation lots of times at work with my teenage patients and stuff. There, you can't control bullies, you can't control other people, you can't control your parents, you can't control your economic situation. There's so many things you can't control, but 100% you can control how you react to every one of those. What am I going to do with that when that challenge that I can't control? How am I going to respond to that? And how you respond to that really, it it fulfills your destiny. What direction you're going to go is how you respond to things, and how you respond to things is under your control.
Yeah, and like the Black Panther thing that you mentioned, like that's so much tied to that because it's like, the character in Black Panther, they can't control what happens to them, but they can kind of take that adversity and kind of like bring it onto their soul pretty much and use it as their power, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just so important. So like one question that I have is just,
Yeah.
with all the stuff going on this year with, the coronavirus going on, with the different talks about the protests and racism and all of those like hot topics right now.
Yeah.
How for you personally with your son and your kids, like how are you talking about these issues, not to put like fear in the child's mind, but to instill the resilience and power?
Yeah. Wow. Woo. Boy, you're throwing a zinger here. Well, as you know, my son is African American. He's Somali. Um, my wife's Somali. So it makes the conversations and everything even a little more a little unique, because there's perspectives that could really cause him challenges with everything that's going on. He's a 16-year-old. He looks like a man. I mean, he's like 6 foot. He driving, all those sorts of things. You never know what you're going to come across. But I think the one thing that we have instilled in him is that thing that I just said as far as resilience goes. You can't control others, but you can control how you react to it. And the majority of the time, not always, but the majority of the time, if you react appropriately, and we have the conversation about how to react appropriately, you will come out, like I said, not 100% of the time, but most times you will come out on top. And if you don't, you will build character from it. And in the end, it will make you stronger and wiser from those type of experience. So I think it's more approaching it. It's a fearful time right now. And there is legitimate things to be fearful of from what you're talking about the race relations and those sort of things that are going on. But we always try to focus more on the opportunity rather than the fear. This is an opportunity to make a difference. This is an opportunity to learn and to maybe talk to people who see things differently than you and have those tough conversations that can maybe change things, hopefully.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think that, that perspective is so important. Just to see like the opportunities with all that's going on. So how about so to a parent watching who perhaps their child doesn't want to face like the challenges in their life, so they maybe don't see the opportunity in having to study for a test, or maybe the coronavirus, they just feel like there's no opportunity in that, or and like just a negative thing maybe that a child is experiencing. What would you say to a parent who is trying to figure out how to talk with their child so that they can see like the opportunity in the adversity? What kind of thing would you tell that parent?
Well, so the one thing, like, and I told you, so I recently came across this like curriculum, Pathways to Empower.
Yeah.
Amazing like advice and education on resilience, how the brain responds to it, how parents can teach it, how kids knowing themselves, knowing there's lots of great resources there. So if checking out Pathways to Empower, it's a really cool website.
Yeah.
And there's lots of good curriculum there. But just off the cuff to say, to tell parents how to overcome this, I think first, everything has to do, there's lots of pressure on us as parents. Everything has to do with how we approach it. If the kid's like, I don't want to do my homework, I don't want to, like, this COVID, I'm stuck here, this is horrible, life sucks, like all this stuff. If they're going at it from that perspective, normally what happens is if we don't view them as a person, if we view them as an extension of us, then we come at them and say, you better do this, you need to do this. That's wrong. Okay?
Yeah.
We need to view them as an individual person and kind of see where they're at, see where they can become resilient. And that is one thing that I really love about my wife. She raised my son was 11 when me and my wife got married, and she raised him so amazingly. But together we've learned stuff too. And one of the things is really finding what motivates your kid.
Wow.
Motivation is
Yeah.
such a powerful tool as a parent. And sometimes people run from it, especially if people consider it the wrong thing, like many people would have considered with my son. What happened is he, he loves video games, and he spent hours playing video games. And at one point in time, when he was like 12, his grades started to drop and stuff, and my wife was like, we're throwing this thing out. That's it. Like, video games are gone, But I said, hey, let's wait a second. And this is what I think parents really need to find: what motivates your kid. Because everybody has something that does motivate them, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's whatever. There is something there. They might be hiding it. They might not feel, it might take a little work to get that out. But anyway, long story short, what ended up happening is me and my son, I told my wife, no, don't throw it out. He's motivated with video games. Let's use this. So I had a heart-to-heart with him. I said, here's the thing, dude. I'm trying to stick up for you, but your grades are dropping. I said, you start to get straight A's, you find a way to make this productive. If you're going to be spending 10 hours, not that I'm promoting 10 hours on video games, please listen to me, but I told him, if you're going to be spending 10 hours doing this, you need to find a way to make it profitable, even at 12, So the kid did tons of research. He now plays professionally. Before COVID hit, he was making between $200 and $400 a week, playing video games.
Wow.
And he got straight A's, and he's 16 now. He started college. In Minnesota, we have what they call PSEO, where you can start college when you're in high school. So as a junior, he started college. He'll graduate high school with a 2-year degree and his high school diploma, and he just got accepted into like the pre-med program as a 16-year-old at the University of Minnesota, Rochester.
Wow, awesome.
So I mean, it works, but it takes that time to listen and see what motivates our kid, our child.
Wow, yeah, great. I mean, that's so important, because like you saw what was his passions, right? What was his things that occupy his time? And you're like, how can I use this? So I think that's such a big point, because when parents are coming up with different things to do with their children, different strategies to do, you can really like ask your child what is important to them, or maybe like ask them what they're resilient in already, and they can kind of use the strengths that they have too, which I think is so important. Like for your son, what like areas you would say is he resilient in now, or like how does he use his resilience just in his life?
Yeah, I would say a lot. It was just him and his mom for a long time. He didn't have a dad. They grew up in not the greatest area in Toronto. Let's see what else. Then when he came here, when he moved to Minnesota, I sent him to a school that was a smaller school. So there wasn't a whole lot of diversity there. So he had that experience of being kind of different than everybody else. And he's just a resilient, amazing kid. And I really chalk that up to his mom, and from hopefully some of the influence I have of trying to get to know him, trying to get to know what motivates him, and encouraging him. Kids, especially when they start to hit the teenage years, something in the brain starts to go towards the negative, towards everything. Life sucks, you suck, teachers suck, parents suck, like everybody sucks, Yeah. But kind of having that conversation, hey, where is this coming from? Okay, I know I'm old and geeky. That's fine. Okay, but how can we make this not suck for you? And I think that's something that parents could really implement, is how can we make this not suck for you?
Yeah, and that's so important, because like so many times young people and just people in general, you may encounter some that you don't enjoy, or as we were saying before, like it's pain or it's some adversity you're experiencing. So it's finding like the positivity in that. Not everything will be positive about it, but it's trying to find that positivity. And I think so many young people nowadays can benefit from that. I think when you talk about resilience, toughness, grit, that's so important right now. It's something that you said at the beginning of the podcast, where like life is about experiencing adversity and pretty much having the resilient mindset to overcome it. So that's just so important. I'm thinking, is there any strategies that you've done with your son in the past 5 years? If like you can think of like some story where maybe he was like going through a challenge and then you just had to talk with him or that sort of thing, and then he was able to overcome it from there.
So I think, and that's kind of why we started the our Learning to Live YouTube channel, was to kind of process through those things in a kind of fun way that maybe we could share with other people too, because there is, I'm trying to think, there not really is a specific conversation, but it's a continual conversation. Hey, bud, what's going on? What, and sometimes he doesn't want to talk, but maybe if I come down and play Smash Brothers with him or something, those type of things open up. And I know that's not for every parent, but finding a place where you can meet. And that's why we also started with the Learning to Live, the Marvel series, because I feel like a lot of at least I found it at work, even a lot of male, female, everybody, parents and kids can kind of connect on science fiction at this point in time. And not everybody, but there is somewhat of a, hey, I think I can tolerate this for a couple hours, and then to maybe have a conversation about it. And that's what, to go back with Ilias, I'm trying to think specifically. I know there was a challenging time when he first started at college, that he didn't do as good as he wanted to in a class, and he was embarrassed to tell us. And he let it go on. We always tell him, hey, if you're struggling, let us know right away. We're here for you. Let's work through this together. And I think that's another thing that's important with education. I think education is such a isolated thing. It's always been raised where it's this isolated thing. The kids need to get it done. Parents do their thing. I really think it needs to be a collaboration where we're kind of talking about it. Are you keeping up with your assignments? Are you, what do you need from me? I think people are so like, oh, well, you don't want to cheat with your kid. Well, of course you don't, but we should also be there to kind of see where they're at, where they're struggling, and it helps us learn and connect with them too. I think so many times people get so stuck in their own lives, where I go to work, you go to school, and the two don't cross. That's going to lead to trouble.
Yeah, and there's so many points from what you said that I think are really great points. Even like the one when you said it's just like an ongoing conversation with your children, like to build the resilience. Because like at times like it might not be like one example with your child, but it's like just the conversations over time. Whereas your son is 16 now, so he already has a pretty strong mind. So it might not even be like you have to like talk to him about it when he's going through something, because he's already has those skills. So it's like it's kind of being just proactive with the resilience and not waiting until something happens to then talk about it. So I think that that's really important. And then also,
and one other key I think for parents that, and this is in mental health too, like with adults or anybody, but especially with kids, I think that can be helpful, that sometimes parents don't know. Any change in behavior lets you know that somehow you need to engage with somebody. So if your kid's yaks all the time and talks, and all of a sudden they're quiet and isolated, don't be invasive, but there's somewhere that you got to touch base. There's an opportunity for resilience there. There's an opportunity for them to overcome the challenge. We as parents, and that's one thing that we're very mindful. I know Ilias had some trouble with some people when he was at school, and he had kind of pulled away a little bit, and his mom noticed, and right away we were able to talk it out and give the support needed. So a change in behavior is, if somebody talks a lot and they're kind of not, something's going on. If they're more of a quiet person and maybe all of a sudden they become more chatty and anxious and energetic, something's going on.
Wow, yeah, I think that's such an important thing for parents to hear, because honestly, I think since the coronavirus started, I think more parents, they might be, so busy working. At times you might not have time to really talk to your child on their school or like different things that they're experiencing. But I think parents just have to make that time, because you don't want it to be like you don't know what's going on in your child's life, where you don't know if they're experiencing a challenge or what their thought process is on something. So I think we just have to be very aware of like what our child is is going through pretty much. And it's
I
like,
think, oh, go
yeah,
ahead. And
yeah,
I think,
and it's
sorry, I
what
didn't
you
mean to
said.
interrupt you. One
Sure.
thing that I think is so vital is we have to walk the walk. I think so many times we tell our kids to do it, but then we're not resilient. Then we get upset and kick the wall when we come home because somebody said the wrong word to us at work, or we come home crabby, and are not emotionally responsible because we feel like we had a rough day. That, it's okay to have a rough day. It's not okay to make it to dump it on somebody else. And I think lots of times when kids are in an environment that's safe and productive and honest, that can happen. Now, like what you said, though, with COVID going on right now, it makes it all the more important because you know what? Let's be honest. There's times I got furloughed. There's times I'm afraid too.
Yeah.
Where is my job going to be? And we have to channel that fear into opportunity rather than channeling that fear into something invasive that, encompasses our daily life and kind of threatens our peace actually.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's modeling, I think, is the most important thing. So, like, you need to model the resilience for your child. And there's one thing that you said that I wrote down. So it's like we have fears too. So being resilient is not having fears. A lot of the time is having fear, but then being able to work through it, which I think our children definitely need to see, especially now, And my question for you is, so say like in an ideal world, in an ideal world where every parent is modeling resilience for their children, can you think of like some problems either in the United States or just in the world in general that may be solved just through if like the whole world was just tough and resilient?
I, I think all of them. A large no,
Yeah,
honestly,
true. Yeah,
no, honestly, if we would come together, I think resilience could help, you know, help us understand people that have lived differently than us. It could help us overcome, obstacles of the way we were conditioned and the way other people were conditioned and not working together. That fear of, I need to keep my own, instead of realizing that those obstacles, those tough conversations that we can have will actually make all of us stronger. I mean, that's resilience, taking challenges and getting stronger. So what could not? I mean, I think that's the saddest thing about politics, and I think even
right,
some
right.
some forms of education is it's absolutely non-resilient. Like they're trying to keep people from overcoming things. They're trying to keep people from coming together. They're focusing on how we're different instead of the 99% of the ways we're exactly the same and we want the same. We
Yeah,
want safety for our families. We want good health for everybody. We want kindness with each other. Who doesn't want that? But no, the focus is always on, look at, you're different. Look at how they're different. Look at how he's different. Look at how she's different. She prays different. He prays this way. He wears this. She wears that. It's disgusting. But
yeah,
resilience, I have no doubt resilience would overcome all those things, and not just nationwide. I really think worldwide.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I
and
know.
also, even if you look from a standpoint of like industry, I mean, if companies were willing to be resilient and face challenges, and start building in, say Africa, and like just, mass producing all over the place instead of just keeping their resources to themselves, it could be awesome. It really could.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, I think that last point you made is very interesting. How resilience is can be tied to loving the world and kind of like not just focusing on yourself, because a lot of times like creating positive change in people, you have to have a resilient mindset for that because you're going to go through challenges to
Of course.
and to make that happen. And yeah, I mean the points you mentioned, like I'm thinking like the presidential, elections going on, and that sort of thing. I mean, if you were running for president, Dustin, I would definitely put in a vote for you. because what you're speaking is
Thank you
just so
so much,
important.
man.
Yeah, because what you're saying is just so important. I think a lot of times on the
No party
news.
would take me, man. No party would take me. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, Dustin, but yeah, if there's a way to write in my vote, then I might still put your name in there. Because
Thanks, man.
really, as you were saying, politics, news, a lot of times, they kind of frame the issues going on in the world, but sometimes they don't talk about how we can overcome them, how we can get to solutions.
Do they ever? That's the. I
Yeah,
really don't think they ever. I think they lose money
that's
that way. I hate to say that,
yeah,
but I
no,
really,
true, yeah.
if things get solved, what do they talk about?
That's the harsh truth, I think. And yeah, like I think that some people might not like to hear that perspective, but in my opinion, that's true. Because at the end of the day, a news station, they're just trying to make money. I mean, there's like some people that are trying to do good work and positive work that work for them,
Yeah,
but the company as a whole, of course, they're trying to make money. So they might put up, a news headline that might instill like fear in someone. They might not talk about like how can we overcome this stuff? So I think it would be so powerful, if they just had a 30-minute time slot to just talk about how can we overcome these issues, how can we build a resilient group of children and future generations.
30 minutes, dude. No, it would make a huge impact. A huge impact. And I really think the sad part about it is the demand would be huge too. They could still make the money, but the problem is that fight that they keep everybody going is how they keep everybody going. Because if it came to it and we really realize that the majority of us really want the same thing, that's going to cause a lot of problems for political parties and other things who have been continually driving us apart.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I could
Oh
be
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, I'm not, but I really think that being resilient and coming together is so much more powerful. And I think we all desire it. I think whenever you interact with normal people, that's where you get. But as soon as the news comes on and one station or the other comes on, and that person has been conditioned that that's not the station they watch, the conversation ends. You're fine.
Wow.
You're making progress and everything, but as soon as the conditioning of the other opinion comes on, it ends. And I think it's non-resilience. That's what it is.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think that's a great connection that you made. Because I'm trying to think how to put this into words. Like the ability to think for yourself, a lot of times that is being resilient because you're resistant to the temptation to think how you always thought. So I think that like that's so important because,
And you have to be
yeah,
resilient. Sorry, Brian, but you have to be resilient to think differently because people are going to attack you. Like the conditioners they don't want to see, they're like most people. I mean, here's the thing. All of us want to think we're independent thinkers. But, the only way I became an independent thinker was when my wife set me back and said, you are so far this way. And I had to go, whoa, I am. You're right. People they have to be resilient over realizing that maybe they were conditioned a certain way. And then when you're resilient over that, then we can open up to everything. So being independent is independent thinker takes a huge amount of resistance because you're going to get challenges from all over the place, mainly from people who don't want to identify that they're group thinking instead of thinking independently.
wow, yeah, because yeah, resilience, like, and being authentic, being open-minded, they're all connected. And one question I have for you is,
Yeah.
um, so how would you explain the connection between self-reflection and resilience? What's the connection there?
Well, I think it's huge. And I think self-reflection is something that is so vitally important, but I'm not sure where it comes from, but we're so conditioned to not be self-reflective in two ways. First of all, we don't want to identify those areas where maybe we're not looking at the whole picture and we're biased. Most people don't like that. And secondly, we have been conditioned to run so far away from pridefulness and being thinking you're better than others. We're so scared of that we don't even identify the beauty in us, the gifts in us. We're afraid to reflect on the gifts we have, which therefore causes zero resilience. Because that's those strengths we have. Everybody, who you think you're better than everybody? No, but you should think you're pretty good. And that's what that's what I've really tried to instill in Ilias. Dude, you're brilliant. That doesn't mean, that's a blessing, man. That doesn't mean that you're better than anybody, but you should be proud of that. You should reflect on that. And in being brilliant, then you need to see how you can be resilient and see those areas where you need to self-reflect and go, okay, in this area, I could use some improvement here. But people are so afraid to be proud. I mean, really, they're afraid of confidence because there's a difference between ego. Don't, I don't think being boastful and putting other people down, but thinking you're good, I think I don't get where that went away, because that's something that we should innately put in our children, and we need to practice it. And I think lots of us, at least my generation, it was something that was scary. I don't want them to think I'm stuck up. Okay, well, no, shouldn't I want them to be happy with their gifts and I happy with mine?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's so many quotes that come to my mind when I hear you talk. Like one is just Muhammad Ali, just him as a person. I think he was so confident, but he also gave back to people. So I think like the point that you mentioned, like you're not stuck up if you're proud and confident, but then you show love to other people. So I think that's a big point right there. I think that
you got to say important. Muhammad Ali, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but talking about perfect example of resilience. I mean, that guy had the opportunity to go completely the wrong path. And he took his talents and, like you said, I mean, he's the perfect example. He's the greatest, in every way. If you ask me, he was kind to others. He was strong. He was successful. He built other people up. I mean, that's one thing I think that was misunderstood with the whole Joe Frazier thing is, Joe Frazier thought he was being insulted. Muhammad Ali pulled him inside and said, hey, dude, we're making money here. Like, play along,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely having some great conversation. And like to someone watching this too, I think as you can tell, like we're talking about parenting, but we're also talking about just life itself. Because I think really how you raise yourself is how you're going to parent. So like everything we're talking about, sometimes we're saying like we're going to raise our child like this. But if we're just talking about a mindset, we're going to raise ourselves like that and then raise our children like that. So I think that's kind of raising or parenting in a very purposeful way for sure.
Well, I think that ties in with the self-reflection you talk about. We need to raise ourselves. Like we need that self-love, that self-reflection, because all of us come in damaged. You know what I mean? We need to parent ourselves along with parenting our kids. I think. I don't know. Maybe you had the perfect upbringing, man. I shouldn't say that. I don't want your mom to get upset or
for something. Sure not. And it's like, it's just always growing as a person. So like we're always raising ourselves, just trying to self-develop. I don't believe anyone should ever stop trying to become a better person, No. Yeah. So I love this conversation that we're having. Thank you for being on. So before I get to my last question, my second to last question is just, how can a listener best connect with you?
So probably the best way, I mean, eventually I have a lot of plans. I have a lot going. I really want to get eventually on Zoom. They have a new thing called On Zoom where you can actually do virtual, have like virtual sessions with other people. That I really want to get into that eventually. But as of right now, I have my YouTube channel, which is Learning to Live. I don't know if you can. So it's LEARNIN 2 LIVE. Learning to Live is my YouTube channel. I'm guessing probably in your podcast you can like put the link somewhere. And then also Dustin Dean, and then if psychiatry on LinkedIn, if you put that in the LinkedIn search, LinkedIn is I don't have Facebook or Instagram. I don't know, I guess I'm an old guy, but LinkedIn is kind of my go-to, and I'm almost always on there, and I'll usually reply like right away if anybody has any questions or anything. Eventually I'd like to get a website going and stuff, but right now it's LinkedIn and learning to live. Oh, I also have a Twitter that isn't used too much, and it's learning to live too also. But there's no E at the end of live. It's just LIV instead of LIVE. Somebody already had the LIVE. So.
Great. Yeah. And I definitely recommend people to connect with you on LinkedIn and through your YouTube channel too. Dustin shares a lot of powerful things on there. So my last question, what is your mission statement as a parent?
Be the parent you wanted to have.
Awesome.
I think that, it's so funny though, because you just about said that in our last session. You almost said those exact words, and I'm like, he's gonna take my mission statement. I worked on that, man. I've been working on that along with studying for my finals. I was like, okay, what's my mission statement? What's my mission? But I really think being that parent you wanted to have, remembering, we forget. I think so many times we get into that rut. Well, my parents did it this way. Yeah, did you like it? Probably not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, well, I didn't turn out too bad, so I'm gonna, learn from the opportunities that were missed in your upbringing, and be that parent you wanted to have.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Just because it's like you're not getting on your parents maybe for not doing something, but like it's just us as people want to grow. So our children, we want them to grow too. So like for my son Ace, I want him to be a better parent than I am, who I wanted to be a better parent than my parent was. And like ideally it just gets stronger and stronger as
and if I came off like I was ripping, I'm not ripping parents.
Oh, no.
What I meant is, no, exactly. I want that next generation to be better than me. We always need to be improving and learning. It looks, unfortunately, as a society, there's so many influences that keep us from doing that. But as individuals, we have to do that for our children.
Awesome. So, Dustin, I want to thank you again for coming on. You've been a very, very valuable guest. I mean, all the things we talk about on resilience, I really hope people really take the messages that we talk about to heart. Because if there's one thing to instill in our children right now, especially in 2020, it's just for them to be strong, to be able to handle adversity, to use it to their advantage and further power. So once again, I definitely thank you for coming on. And I look forward to maybe either having you on again or just being connected with you for sure.
No, I would love to come on. If the opportunity arises, maybe even someday you wanted to have Ilias on and have him talk about how I'm full of it, or whatever, or me and my wife, anything you need. Brian, you're doing a great thing. I appreciate this. This word needs to get out. Somebody has to have the skills and the motivation to do it, and I think you do. And it's going to continue to grow, and you're doing an awesome thing, man. So anything we can do to collaborate together, I'm for it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
That's the episode of Purposeful Parenting Period, and stay tuned for next time.